Listen up, product managers, 2024 is just around the corner, and this exact moment, this is the right time to make sure that you are 2024 ready. Today, we're going to make sure that you have all the information, all the know-how, all the tips and all the tricks you need in order to turn long list of requirements and buzzwords into something that you can actually act upon. Today, we're going to make sure that you are 2024 ready, an outstanding candidate for product management position. Welcome aboard to the orange floor, the product league floor, where we support you in becoming the best product manager you can be. Product League is an international mentoring program for product managers by product managers in 30 countries around the world. I am Maria Cassis. It's a pleasure for me to get to know you better. So please go ahead and tell me in the chat who you are, where you're from, and what is your biggest question, struggle, or challenge when it comes to candidacy in 2024. We have all the answers you need. But first, you need to give us all your questions. So please go ahead and tell us in the chat everything that is on your mind and heart when it comes to your career in 2024. And we're starting right now with getting to know our speaker for today. Say hello to our speaker for today, Kimone Napier, founder and recruitment coach at The Higher Breakthrough. Hello, Kimone, what's up?
Hi, Mariah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be back.
The pleasure is mine. I am so excited to have your energy, your tips, your tricks, everything we discussed about just now for this session, because 2024 is just around the corner. It's here.
It's basically here. Yeah. It's here. And honestly, there's so much information that honestly, applicants really need to know, because the hiring industry has changed a lot, I would say, since COVID. But there are some trends that it's going to be happening next year that I think people need to be aware of, so they can honestly, apply to jobs and actually land the job that they're really looking for.
Yes, because it's not just about applying, it's about applying in the way that will get you the job that you're actually interested in. Right? Yeah. So it's not as easy as it sounds, and it sounds like a real challenge, right? And yet, I'm telling everyone who is listening to us right now, it's even harder than you think, because 2024 is different.
It's very different.
The market is changing. Economies around the world are changing. The market is full of candidates that want to have the exact position that you're interested in. And we want you, everyone in the audience, to have the position that you're interested in. And we have Kimone here giving you all her know-how as for how to do that. So I'm excited. I'm sure that everyone here in the audience is excited as well. And you met Kimone, you met me, and we want to meet you. So please go ahead and in that chat, let us know who you are, where you're from, and your struggle, challenge, question, everything that is on your heart and mind when it comes to outstanding job applications in 2024. Product management the right way, product management candidacy the right way. We already have Eti here from Israel joining us, saying, I would like to know how to level up and work more on product strategy and less on releases, Jira, delivery, etc. So how to position herself the right way into leveling up the game, climbing up the ladder. Mandy is here. Amanda, I have a product management from Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been difficult getting interviews here in Canada. So she just moved apparently from Nigeria to Canada, which is a challenge. And now she wants to know how to turn this opportunity into finding a better position for her the right way. I have reviewed my CV and I'm still not sure why I'm not getting called. Well, you took the right decision to join us today.
Yeah.
You're going to learn exactly why. And another LinkedIn user who is in the audience saying 15 years of extensive PM practice from discovery to delivery, including crisis product management, looking for first formal PM role. Now, this is an interesting one. Yeah. This person says, I have the experience, I just don't have the title yet. What am I doing? And how am I doing it the right way? So I will position myself as a candidate, even though I have the actual experience, but not the formal title yet. I love these questions. We're starting with a talk with all the know-how that you're going to share. Then we're going to have some super interesting Q&A. So everyone in the audience, keep the questions coming. Kimone, I am so excited.
I'm so excited.
It's fantastic. So how about we start a session?
So super excited and still here. Yes.
Yes, fantastic. The stage is yours. Can't wait to get to know the tips that you're going to share with our audience for today.
All right. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Mariah, thank you so much for a wonderful introduction. So, today we are going to be talking about creating a standout job application for product managers. So, this is specific for you guys because I know specifically this is such a competitive field. There are a lot of fields that are competitive, but product management is extremely competitive. There are a lot of jobs that are open, but at the same time, there are a lot of candidates. So, I'm going to talk about some ways to actually help your application to stand out so you can get interviews and you can land your next job. So let's keep it pushing. But before I jump in, I just want to introduce myself. So like I said, my name is Kimone Napier. I'm the founder of Hire Breakthrough. So I'm a hiring and recruitment strategist. And I work with startups to really help them to actually find the talent. But I've also been a career coach for an extensive period of time. So I'm here to use my skills as a career coach and as a recruiter to help you to get, more applications in, to help you to find the job that you've been looking for. So I'm hoping this will be extremely helpful for you. And let's not waste any more time. Let's dive in and get started. But before we get started, I wanted to ask a question, and I'll give you about a minute or two to answer. What aspect of the job application process do you find most challenging? And that could be your resume, it could be your cover letter, it could be the actual interviews, right? It could be maybe quantifying your worth into numbers. I'm really intrigued to hear what aspect is challenging for everyone here, just so I know where I can ground this conversation. So put that in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and continue, but I'm going to be reading these as we go through the presentation. So go ahead and answer that question because I'm so curious as to know where you guys are in your career and what are you finding the most challenging right now in 2023 when it comes to your applications. So, all right. So the first place I wanted to start, remember I said that, of course, I worked as a recruiter for quite some time in addition to career coaching, but I want you to understand the hiring process because it's going to actually really help you when it comes to understanding how you really need to position yourself and craft your application, your resume, your cover letter, all that stuff in the process so it can actually be seen by a recruiter. So let's get started. So the first thing when it comes to the hiring process, of course, it starts with a job posting. So prior to that, senior leadership meets, they're like, okay, we have to craft this job description. They write the job description, the whole 9 yards. And now it comes to this point where they're going to post it. Now, usually a job description is usually posted using some form of applicant tracking system. So it's also called an ATS. So it's basically a system that's going to basically post the job everywhere. They monitor this through the system. So if you see, jobs that's being posted on LinkedIn, Indeed, all the sites, usually they're using an applicant tracking system to do it. And usually at the bottom of the job posting, you can see what system it is that they're using. So this is the reason why. And the reason why this is so crucial to know as we're going to be moving into 2024 is that with the use of artificial intelligence and AI, half the time when you're applying to a position, it's not being seen by an actual human being first. It's being seen by a system, by artificial intelligence. And so it needs to get past that stage so an actual person can look at your job application and you can get the interviews. Now, because of this increase in AI, this is the reason why it's been so hard for probably most of you to actually get past the application phases because it's not being seen by an actual human. So that's the first thing. Usually this part of the process takes anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, but there are some roles that are open indefinitely. So you'll see some roles where they'll say, okay, apply by like November 30th to be considered, or some of them are just open indefinitely. And recruiters have a tendency to look at applicants who applied first. It is a complete bias, but I know the industry, and that's typically how it works. Whoever is applying first, they have the most energy, right, at the beginning of the process. And so they're more vested to look at an application for those who first apply. So try your best to apply for jobs and position at the very beginning of the process as early as possible. So the next thing is application review. This could take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks, but it depends on the volume of applications. And it's usually followed by an initial screening process that can also take about 2 weeks. And that's like a phone interview, a virtual interview or something of that sort is how that usually starts. So this is like a rough time frame. I'll be quite honest, in the last year or so, I've been seeing the time frames for these gradually increase. So just want you to be aware of how long it's typically taking for you to actually land that first initial interview and what's kind of happening behind the scenes, because somebody's looking at the applications, looking over it. It takes time, but that's roughly a time estimate. The next thing is interviews and assessments. So overall, this process takes about 4 weeks because again, it depends on how many people they have in the pool. They're usually, if it's at the interviewing part, it's rounds of interviews. It's going back and forth, reporting it back to senior leadership. This could be a panel interview, it could be a technical interview. It also could be some form of an assessment, right? So they send you the assessment, they're giving you time to complete the assessment, and they have to have time to review the assessment for the number of people that they sent it to. So this is how this process works, but you're looking at about 4 weeks. Next thing is going to be reference checks. So once you've done all the interviewing, right, it could be multiple rounds. To be quite honest, I've seen variation of this. So it could be an assessment, and it could be that you did the initial, phone screen. They send you an assessment. Then you have an interview. Then you have a second interview, or you can have a panel interview. It varies. There's not a industry best practice with this. Honestly, it varies from company to company, but I've seen anywhere from 2 to 4 rounds of interviews on average for a lot of positions. So of course, this takes a lot of energy. But I just wanted to be completely crystal clear with you about how it looks, from a recruitment standpoint. So once they actually figure out like, okay, these are the people that I'm actually interested, or this is the person I'm interested in, then they start conducting reference checks, which can take anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, because sometimes it takes time for your references to get back to them. Maybe they're playing phone tag, the whole 9 yards. Maybe the person who's hiring for the role has additional questions. So that also takes some time there as well. The next thing is, of course, it's final selection. So sometimes reference checks don't check out, and so they have to go to a different candidate. So this can take anywhere from another 1 to 2 weeks, just so you're completely aware. And then it moves to offer negotiation. So let's say, yay, great for you, they extend you an offer. Maybe the offer is not what you were looking for. So if there's not maybe some pay transparency on the job post, and you want to actually negotiate a higher salary, another week or so, depending on the complexity of the negotiations or how senior the role is. And then of course it moves into onboarding. So that's the next thing, is that it moves into this. So yay, you've been hired, and it moves into onboarding. So this is the hiring process from start to finish. I wanted you to understand the time frame, because you're looking at a minimum of like usually anywhere from 3 to 4 months from start to finish with this process. And so of course that can be discouraging, because you're like, oh my gosh, this takes so much time. But I want you to just be aware of it. Don't give up, right? It takes time for you to actually find the right job. It takes a lot of energy, but I want you to understand the hiring process. So now what I want you to understand is that your application is going to serve as a point of contact between you and the prospective employer. So for those of you who are saying like, I've applied to hundreds and hundreds of jobs, I'm not hearing back, you have to really take time to craft your application. It's kind of like you're crafting everything it is about you, or everything you want this employer to know about you, into this entire application, because you want hiring managers to see that you're meeting the fundamental qualifications, but you're also coming with some, extra secret sauce, so to speak. So it's the time for you to highlight, everything that they need to know about you, highlight your achievements, how you're strategic, your leadership capabilities is what you want to highlight in your application. So I don't want you to sit here and just apply. There's certain posting sites, like ZipRecruiter and those where you could just do a one-click apply. You still want to craft, your package, so to speak. Think of yourself as a package. You're selling yourself to a company is what you're basically doing. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but that's what it is. It's almost like selling a product. You are the product. And so you have to sell yourself to this company so you stand out, because I'll tell you, with some of these jobs, they're getting thousands, hundreds of applications. And so you have to ask yourself, how is it that I can stand out? But we will talk about that. So don't worry, I'll give you some tips and tricks to actually help you stand out in the space. All right, so I want to talk about some of the common challenges faced by product management applicants specifically. So the first one is there's a high level of competition. The I will say this role, product managers, whether you are entry level or completely senior, for the last couple of years have begun to attract a large amount of applicants. So that's experienced professional, recent graduates. But because it's such a high level of competition, right, a lot of companies need product managers. It can make it challenging for you to stand out because, of course, everyone is applying for some of the same roles. So that's the first challenge that I'm seeing. But there's ways to position yourself no matter what the competition is. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. The next challenge is you have to demonstrate your impact. So you have to showcase the impact of your previous work on products, and that can sort of be challenging, right? Because you kind of have to get outside of your head and be able to effectively talk about the success that you had working on products. If you're a more entry level applicant, maybe you don't even have that experience yet. But something that you can do, a little nugget for you, is work on test projects, so to speak. I don't know if you've had internships. You can highlight some of those things as well. But you have to articulate your contributions to make the hiring manager understand why they need you and how your work has led to the success of the products that you worked on. So that's the other thing, you have to demonstrate your impact. The next thing is a diverse skill set. So one thing is that people think of product management as an extremely technical role, which it is technical because you have to understand technology, but at the same time, you're expected to possess a very diverse skill set. So you have to have communication skills, be technical, you have to be analytical, right? You need some interpersonal skills. You have to be a leader, right? Because you're managing the product, and you have to be able to understand how to work with multifaceted different sets of people at a given time. On top of that, project management, right, naturally falls under product management for a lot of product managers. So you have to think about that, and to demonstrate your proficiency in all these areas with just a resume is not the easiest thing. So you have to get creative to think, okay, how am I going to tell this story about all my skills with this limited space that I have to do that? But there are a number of ways to do that. So I'll talk about that. The next one is, your product portfolio presentation. And this is and again, that I find that is very challenging. Some people skip over this altogether. I don't recommend that. But it's almost to talk about the products that you've managed, to quantify them, right? Because you have to build and present almost like a case study, so to speak. And it can be very demanding if you're not a fan of speaking, so to speak. That can be very nerve-wracking, but you have to select the right products and the right projects that you've managed. And this is where I say it's important to really craft each application individually, because what you are presenting as a product that you've managed in the past, it may not necessarily be relevant to whatever you're applying for. So what I recommend is to have different examples. So maybe you're looking for, if you want to work at an IT as an IT product manager, right? You want to have a portfolio that maybe talks about some of those projects or talks about IT specific things that you managed on those products. Maybe you want to be a product manager with along the lines of engineering. That could look totally different. So you want to have different sets. This sounds completely time consuming, but it's going to help you and make this easier. Different sets that you can use to apply for the different roles that you're looking for. So that's the next challenge. The next one is experience requirements, because many of the product manager positions, they operate at more of a senior level. So they require a significant amount of prior experience. So if you're looking to transition into product management, it could be an obstacle for you. Or if you're looking to advance in the field, it could be an obstacle, right? Somebody had mentioned that they didn't actually have the product manager title, but they basically operated as a product manager. So of course, you're going to want to talk about some of that information to make you stand out, to make them relevant. Because I'll tell you this, a recruiter is going to look at it and be like, well, this person hasn't been a product manager. So why should I offer them a product management role? But you want to use your application in order to talk about some of that stuff. So I'm going to give you some nuggets to help you with that. And then the next one is interview preparation. So of course you've applied, now you have the interview. And so sometimes preparing for an interview as a product manager can be intense, because of course it's not just, you're talking about yourself. You have to talk about the products. You have to remember the metrics as well, right? The key performance indicators, like what are the percentages, right? Because it's such a technical role, you want to make sure you have that information. So they can ask you anything. It could be from anything from strategic decision making. It could talk about technical queries. Navigating the interview process can be quite challenging, but it requires a lot of preparation. And so you want to make sure you're going to give yourself time. Make sure you find out all that you can find out about this company. Try to find out who it is that you'll be interviewing with, so you can kind of get a sense of their roles and responsibilities as well. And you want to actually interview yourself. Put yourself in the situation and think about questions that you yourself think this person might ask you an interview. If you have somebody that you can role play with, that also will help you, especially if you're entry level and you don't have quite enough experience with interviews for this specific position. So those are some of the common challenges, but these are the ways that you can actually really get over those challenges, so to speak, because everything in life, it can be a challenge. But I know, because this role is specifically very competitive, right? There's a lot that's been going on in the market this year in 2023. And so I want to give you some of these tips in order for you to prepare for 2024. So now I'm going to talk about your resume. We're going to talk about generally how to craft this application, but I'm going to start off with the resume. But before we do that, your application is going to allow you to showcase your qualifications. So like I said, it's going to be a package. It's almost like you're handing somebody a package and saying, this is a product, and you're trying to sell the product, but the product is you. So you want to talk about your qualifications, your experiences, what you've achieved, because you have to be able to quantify yourself into words and into metrics to stand out in such a competitive job market. That's what's going to really help you. So now I'm going to talk about the resume. Before I do that, I wanted to ask the audience a question. So how often do you update your resume and your cover letter? So take some time and answer those questions, because I'm actually curious as to how often you update that. I know some people, they just click away and they just apply. A LinkedIn user had said that I'm not a fan of LinkedIn Easy Apply thoughts. And so I am not a fan of LinkedIn Easy Apply either. On the back end of it, right, the hiring manager can actually craft LinkedIn Easy Apply to actually be an actual application, not just a one-click thing. So you'll still answer questions. But if it's just that you're just clicking and applying, it's just sending your resume, I'm not a fan of that, because again, it's not going to help you to stand out, because that's what everyone is doing as well. So answer in the comments how often you update your resume and cover letter, because I'm actually very curious. All right, so let's talk about the resume. The resume is basically that's your secret sauce. All recruiters are going to be looking at your resume. Um, Someone has just said I update my resume to every new job. That's great. I'm glad that you do that. So we're going to talk about how you can craft an effective resume. So the first thing, of course, is your contact information. Some of the things that you want to have for your contact information, of course, you're going to want to have your name, your phone number, you're going to want to have your email address, your LinkedIn profile if you are on LinkedIn. But you want to make sure it's current and professional. Don't put things like your address. You can also put where it is that you're located as well. So, for example, you can put New York, New York, San Francisco, California, and what have you. So you want to make sure you start off with that basic information. Now, under contact information for product managers, you also want to include some type of link to your portfolio or your website. I'm going to talk about later how you can make those stand out, but you want to have something there so they can actually see your work. I'll tell you, a lot of people are applying to product manager roles and they're not including any of that information. This will help you to stand out. So you want to make sure you have something that they can go over to actually see some more about you, right? Because a resume is only going to tell one part of the picture. But if you have a portfolio, maybe you created even a website to talk about some of the stuff that you're doing, it actually is going to help you. We have a comment here. I've heard that some recruiters would like a zip code for pay analysis. You don't have to put a zip code. You can just put your city and state. That's completely fine. But what I will tell you is that in the process, what a lot of jobs are doing is that the salary that they're giving you is dependent on where you're located. It's for pay transparency. So you might see something that says like 120,000 to like 210,000, and you'll see information that says it depends on where it is that you're located, right? So if it says like you're located in New York, right? It might be on the higher level. Maybe if you're you're located in Kansas, it might be a bit lower just because of where you're located. So some companies have some laws about that, and so that's how they determine what's going to be your starting salary. So that's a nugget for you to know. All right, so let's continue on. The next thing you want to have is a professional summary. This is key. This is golden. This doesn't matter if you're entry level or if you're very senior. You want to spend some time on this. So it's going to talk about basically summarizing your experience in about a paragraph or so. So you want this to be a paragraph and you want it to highlight your expertise, your accomplishments as a product manager, but you're going to use this section to capture the hiring manager's attention. So for example, if you're on the senior end, you can say something like, let's say if you're applying to like a VP of product role, you can say experienced VP of product with 10 plus years of experience, yada, yada, yada. That's how you want to position that and start that. So your professional summary is next. Then you want to talk about core competencies. So you want to create a section to list your core skills that's relevant to product management. Now, I want to say don't just list technical skills. You want to list also some soft skills. So your leadership skills, communication skills, and what have you. This is also a section where you want to list some of the skills that are relevant to the job description for the job that you're applying to. The reason as to why is because I mentioned your application is most likely going to go through an applicant tracking system. And so the system will highlight individuals or applicants that are matching the requirements of the job application. So it's a system, it's making it a little bit easier for the recruiter. So you want to make sure that some of the skills that are listed on the job description are actually in this section here. So it makes your resume stand out more, and it moves it higher to the top of the pool, because the system is going to rank the resumes based off of who's most experienced and the whole 9 yards. Some hiring managers and recruiters are lazy. I'll tell you, some of them are very lazy. So they make the system do all the work for them. So oftentimes, if you are applying for a lot of jobs and you're not even getting to an interview stage, a lot of the ones that you're applying to are probably going through some type of system. And so you want to make sure that you are standing out. So this is a nugget for you, making sure that the skills for the job are aligning with this section here. The next one is your professional experience. So I see a lot of people mess up a lot with this section. Of course, you want to detail your work history in reverse chronological order. So everything from present, right, starting at the top and moving down. So of course, you want to have the job title, the company name. You want to have your dates of employment. For your dates of employment, you don't have to put like, November 8th, 2023. You could just put November 2023 to present or something like that. You want to also list your key achievements. So sometimes when I see this section for applicant, it just looks like, okay, somebody's just writing whatever, but it's supposed to tell a story about your achievements, and you want to quantify your achievements. That is a big mistake that I see people make, specifically with product managers. You want to make sure that you're putting percentages to see that, okay, this is what this person has achieved. So if you launched a project, what were the actual metrics that this project actually achieved? If the product that you've launched, right, if it of course affected any revenue growth for the company, what are the numbers? So you want to make sure that you're putting that to make it stand out. Recruiters love to see metrics because it makes it quantifiable and it makes it easy to say to senior leadership, I think this person would be amazing. Look at the numbers, right? Everything is going to come back to a number. And so you want to make sure that you're highlighting your ability to drive product development and innovation in a quantifiable way. So that's how you can craft your professional experience. The next one is your education. So for example, let's say if you're more senior and maybe you graduated in 2004, whatever, and you feel like it's dating you, you don't have to put the actual year. You could just put like, I have a master's in industrial engineering. I'm just making this up as an example. And you don't have to put the year, because I know for some people, when it comes to ageism is a real thing, right, when applying to jobs. And so you don't have to put any of that information. But what you want to mention is the institution, the degree you earned, and your major. You don't have to put the actual year. You can actually remove that information, because why? Eventually that they're going to ask you that for that information anyway. So you don't have to put it. You can also mention certification and courses. So if you're certified as a product manager, or if you're taking other courses that would help you, not necessarily just product management courses, but leadership courses, anything that will help your application to stand out. So for example, let's say, I'm going to make this up as an example, but let's say if you're applying to a role for some type of education consulting firm, right? Maybe one of the courses that you've taken correlates to education, right? Things like that, those small things are going to help you to stand out, because what a hiring manager might say is that, well, this person has some experience working in the education sector, and so maybe this won't be a complete learning curve for them. We have a question here from the audience. I've seen some debate on how long a bullet point item should be. My circle of supporters feels this is about right or correct. So I'm looking at the example here. So you want to list 3 to 4 bullet points. Don't list a ton, because remember, your resume for the ATS, which is the applicant tracking system, you don't want your resume to be any longer than 2 pages, right? Anything longer than that, it's seen negatively. I'm sorry to say, seen negatively for recruiters and for the system. So you want to make sure that you list no more than that. I would say 4 is a really good number. You can go up to 5, but you want to make sure that it's sustainant. It gets to the point and it's telling the story as to what it is that you can accomplish there. But for your resume, no longer than 2 pages. If you are very senior, right? For all my senior people looking at VP type of roles, maybe very chief type of roles as well. Something that you can do, you can have your resume that's 2 pages, but you can also add a chronological type of resume. So maybe it's that you have 20 years of experience. That is hard to fit on two pages, but this is something that you can add into your application. Usually the system will allow you to upload multiple files. And it's also something that you can talk about in your cover letter, which I will talk about next after this section. So the next thing is your projects and your portfolio. So someone asked that question, does having a portfolio help? Absolutely, it will help, specifically for this role, because people want to see results. And another thing that you can do, another nugget for you as well, your network, right? Utilizing your network to find opportunities. So if you see hiring managers, if you're reaching out to them for intro and they're actually responding, and they ask you, or recruiters or what have you, and they ask you for your resume, you can send your resume, but you can also send the link to your portfolio or your website. It'll help you to stand out, because I guarantee you 40% of people are not utilizing that. And so it's just words on a paper, but having a portfolio is actually going to help you, because you can showcase specific projects that you worked on as a product manager. You can describe the objectives, your roles, the challenges that you face, include some of those metrics and the outcomes that you achieved, because it's going to demonstrate your effectiveness. So this is how it can really help you. We have a question here: how to find the best company for yourself. Honestly, you have to ask yourself what it is that you're looking for in your next role, your company, and you want to see if the values of the company aligns with yours. That's how you're going to actually find the best company for yourself. Because I know if you're looking for a job, sometimes it's very much like, okay, I'm just going to apply for a job. If it's not the right fit in terms of your values, it's going to make it harder. And honestly, you probably won't even stay at that company for a long time. So you want to make sure the company that you're applying for actually gets you excited. Do you even want to work here? You have to ask yourself this question. But that's how you're going to find the best company for yourself. If there are specific industries that you want to look for, right? That's very easy. You can do a search, do your research, and maybe you see a company and you're like, okay, I would love to work for this company. They may not be hiring right now, but you kind of keep your radar for it in the future, and you can, on LinkedIn, hit the follow button. So every time they're hiring, you get a notification and things of that nature. So that's how you're going to really find the best company for yourself. So for your resume as well, if you've been like featured in any articles, blog posts and stuff, right? So for my senior people, you definitely want to add that information, because it makes you look like a thought expert, which you are. You are a thought expert in your field. So you want to make sure that you list all that information. Maybe you've spoken at industry events on product management. So you want to actually highlight all of these things. Again, anything that's going to make you stand out. So you want to make sure that you're talking about all of this. It may seem like nothing to you, but to somebody else viewing your resume, it might say like, wow, this person has spoken on stages about product managers. And so I would really love to have somebody with that thought leadership here in the company, things like that. Any additional skills that you might have, right? You can list it there. If you didn't list it in the top section of core competencies, then you want to list it at the bottom as well, in an additional skill section, that maybe is some type of PM software, analytical tools, coding, design, things of that nature. If your course competencies area talked more about some soft skills, then you of course want to list the more technical skills in this area. If you're proficient in any languages, this sounds so crazy, but you would be surprised at the situation some of these companies find themselves in. And so if you're bilingual, that'll also help you to stand out, because it could be that, let's say if your company that you're applying for the role is based in the UK, maybe they need somebody speaking French, German, whatever it is, and you actually have that proficiency. Even if the role is not based there, they actually see that as a value add-on. Like, oh, this person can actually, come and travel over there, or so have you, or even talk to some of our partners in those countries. Again, very small, minute detail, but it'll also help you to stand out. If you have any professional memberships, so for example, the Product League here, of course, that's one. The name talks about everything that they do at the Product League. So if you're a member of something like that, you can list that there. Any other groups, affiliations, you want to list it there, because why? The person that's viewing your resume might actually be affiliated with some of these professional memberships. And so don't hide those details, talk about some of those things. And then for a references section, you don't have to list the references, but you could just say upon request. so they know that you're willing to give references. Again, a very minute detail, but it'll help you to stand out. So this is in a nutshell what you need to have on your resume to help it to stand out. Now your cover letter. Now, how many of you actually use cover letters? So put the number in the chat, put it in the chat and say yes or no, because I'm actually curious. Now, a lot of people feel like cover letters is just a waste of time, but I'll tell you, a lot of hiring managers and recruiters actually look at cover letters. And for a lot of applicant tracking systems, it ranks your application higher sometimes when you actually add the cover letter. So it's kind of like it's ranking it based off of what it is that you're including in it. So you want to actually make sure you have one. Now, if you are very senior level or very high level, now let me tell you why it's absolutely, I would say, crucial for you to actually use a cover letter. And I'll say use a cover letter if you're not applying for a job based off of your network. If you're applying for a job just online, maybe you saw it on LinkedIn or one of these job boards, you actually want to include information, because this is what will happen if you're very senior in a role. Sometimes if you're applying for a role, let's say, for example, you've had a gap in your resume. Sometimes you're applying for a role and the recruiter or the hiring manager sees it and they're like, okay, why is this gap in this resume? You want to use a cover letter to talk about that, because you're kind of getting ahead of the question. So they don't actually like rule you out just because of something so foolish. Like some recruiters, like they look at a gap in your resume almost like, well, what happened? Why? Like it's almost like you don't have a life outside of your job. That sounds so crazy, but this is how a lot of recruiters or hiring managers think. And for a long time, if you had a gap in your resume, it was almost like, they saw it as the worst thing possible, that something must have been wrong with this person because they had a gap. So anything that you can foresee someone as a recruiter or hiring manager might ask you about, you want to talk about that in the actual cover letter. You also want to talk about why you're excited to work with this company. Now, I know a lot of you are probably like, oh my gosh, another thing to do, but it will actually help you to stand out. And so if you can, remember, a lot of times cover letters are not required, but you want to talk about something. And some of these things that I have listed here can actually really help with that. So you want to make sure you have, your opening paragraph or your introduction is actually captivating the person reading it, because you want it to grab their attention. So talk about why you're enthusiastic for the role of the company. You could talk about how you learned about the job opening, especially if it was through a referral. It could, even if it was from a job posting, you want to talk about all of that. And you want to talk about the specific role and why you're particularly interested in this opportunity, but how your background aligns with the company's mission, the products, the industry, and stuff. We have a question here. Do many ATS systems ever look at the cover letter for automated ranking? Yes, they do. And so the algorithm can be set. Sometimes, depending on the system that you're using, it could be set by the hiring manager, the recruiter. So although the actual application may say like it's optional, sometimes on the back end, they have it set where it ranks higher if you add a cover letter, even if it hasn't looked at the cover letter quite yet. So again, sometimes it helps you to actually just have the cover letter. So, even when I was applying for jobs, I always used a cover letter. And it always helped me with finding jobs when I was looking. So if you can have them, now you can have a standard cover letter, right? And just change it the way you would change certain things about the cover letter. So you could tailor it more to the application. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is you want to demonstrate understanding, how you have an understanding of the company's needs as a product manager, maybe their actual products, their challenges. Talk about that. Like, you have to brag on yourself. Brag on yourself to actually talk about some of this. Now, we have some comments here talking about ChatGPT. I'm going to talk about that actually in a second, because that's some of the trends for 2024. So there's some things that you need to know. I'll address that in a second. So you want to also talk about your problem solving skills. Of course, product management, that's one of the key skills you need to have is problem solving skills. So talk about that. And you could even give examples as to how you've identified challenges, developed solutions, achieve some positive outcomes in your past roles as well. And then of course you want to talk about your passion and commitment. Like, why are you actually passionate for this role? Sometimes hiring managers could think like, okay, this is just another person applying. But if you are really able to demonstrate belonging, right? I talked about that last week, but if you're able to demonstrate belonging in your application, it really does help you to stand out, and it demonstrates you're genuinely interested in this role, and it's not just a check. Now that sounds crazy, but sometimes people will think like, okay, this role is just going to be a paycheck for this person. That sounds crazy, because of course we work because of course we want to work. Sometimes we have to work because of course we need money in order to live, but you don't want it to come off as that. You want it to show that you're genuinely interested in the role. All right, so in the next section, I'm going to talk about some actual real life examples of some resumes. And so I'll give you some of those examples here, because I want you to actually see the resumes so you can understand some of the small things that could be big things. So we'll talk about some of that. And so I want to share the screen with the resumes. All right, so this is the first one. So this is, and these are real, actual real resumes. I've just changed names. That's because, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus with the resume. So the first one is John Smith. So John Smith is a senior product manager who has 10 years of experience. Now, in the comments, I want you to hear from you what you think about this resume, because there's a couple of things here with this resume that are absolute no-nos that I would not share. Now, the first thing is this image, right? Again, I do not recommend you actually putting your picture on your resume. There are a couple of reasons. Sometimes it messes with the algorithm, and so your application or your resume is not being pulled correctly by the actual ATS system. There's so many different ones. And so sometimes the image or your picture can actually mess with that. So I don't recommend you put a picture on your resume. The next thing is that I noticed immediately that John has 10 years of experience, but at the same time, his resume is not reflective of the 10 years of experience. And so again, this is kind of very blank and basic. So the profile under this, you would really want to talk about a story as to like your experience, and want to get the actual person reviewing this to get really excited about actually looking at this resume. And that is not doing it justice. All it's telling me that John has 10 years of experience. It doesn't really tell me anything more than that. Again, down here, it lists these skills. I am sure with 10 years of experience, John would have a ton of more skills. But as you can see, it's a mistake that a lot of product managers make. They focus only on the technical and nothing else. And so again, you have these like 6 skills here, but I'm sure John has a host of more other skills. Work experience, he has these 3 companies. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you notice here, there's nothing quantifiable about it. So again, if you are a product manager, specifically applying for a senior role, you need to be able to quantify your results. There's also, John does have a website here. So again, of course, once you go to the website, you might have some more metrics and quantifiable results there, but you also need to do some of that here on the actual resume. And here, John has listed references. Now, this is not like an absolute no, but again, you could just put available upon request, because next thing you know, and I've seen this actually happen, you apply for a role, maybe either this is no longer their title. Also, somebody might have passed away, or you might have fallen out with this person, and you therefore need to use another reference. So that's why I always say available upon request, because you just never know. You might need to change some of that. I'm looking up, I'm looking at the comments, and I agree with some of your, I agree with all of them. Basically, the ATS compatibility of this resume looks dicey. And then what's up with the references right up front? So honestly, for a long time, that was recommended. For a long time, it was recommended, but people have stopped doing that, I would say, for honestly, like the past 5 to 10 years. So it's dating John a little bit in the eyes, but of course, you don't want to list all that information. So this is a very, very basic resume, but it's sad because John has 10 years of experience and is not basic when it comes to applying for a role. So these are some of the things that I want you to really, really avoid. Um, Here, also another thing, John could have also put his location. I'm assuming it's California, but it might not be. It could just be this is where, John is graduated from. So that's the first thing there. I want to show you another resume. So this is Jessica Bell's resume. Now, this resume is much, much better. This is actually a pretty decent resume. So again, here up top, you have the resume summary. So Jessica is telling you, I'm a product manager. I have 9+ years of experience. Talks about all these different facets of what it is that they can do: brand strategy, product performance, strategic marketing. There's some metrics in here, which is good. Jessica's also talking about how she's certified as a product manager and where she's got her certification from. So all that is good. Jessica didn't list her actual location, but that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It could be maybe Jessica's focusing more on remote opportunities. So that's not like a complete, no, but it would have been nice to see. All this information here is good: LinkedIn, email, and stuff. Now, one thing I would have loved to see with Jessica, I would love to see a link to a portfolio, a website, or something, a link to a document that talks some more about the product management experience, because I would expect with over 9 years of experience with product management, there's definitely some projects and some products that Jessica could talk about. So it would be nice to see. Education looks good. Now the skills look good. The only thing is here, all Jessica put was interpersonal skills. I would love to see some more about some other skills outside of like the technical ones here, but this is okay. And then in terms of the actual work experience, this looks great. 4 bullet points here. It's not too lengthy. It's quantifiable. It gets straight to the point as to what Jessica has accomplished in these roles. So overall, this is a great resume to have. This is not a bad one, and I would expect this resume to actually get picked up by an applicant tracking system because it is so clean and it's very concise in its nature. But I will show you, what I'm going to show you is I actually rewrote Jessica's resume. And so I want to show you what I would have done differently. And this would apply, let's say Jessica decides like, okay, I'm starting to go for some senior level roles, where she wants to up level. All right, her current title is product manager. And so maybe it's now she's looking for a job and she's saying like, I want to go for a more senior level role. So let's see. This is how I would have restructured this resume. And so senior product manager. So this is the first thing. Before I jump into that, let's start at the top. So this section here, it has her name, location, phone number, email, LinkedIn, link to the portfolio. And this is a PDF file, so it's clickable, right? They can click it and go straight there. Then you always want to make sure that whatever role you're applying for, that this section here matches whatever role it is that you're applying for. Why? Because the ATS system is going to pick up on that. You want to make sure it's also listed again here as well. Jessica's years of experience. I didn't change this section at all because I thought this was written perfectly. Key accomplishments. So summarizing all the accomplishments amongst the roles that she's had over this time is also another great thing here, because remember, a recruiter is spending probably no more than 3 to 5 minutes scanning your resume. And so you want to make sure you're captivating them just like that initially by looking at it. So talking about some of her key accomplishments here, right? They're looking at it here, right? This one right here, this is very good because it's quantifiable. And so a recruiter looks at this like, wow, discover new clients, negotiate over $5 million of partnership and product deals. They're going to say like, okay, wow, this person is really skilled. They've accomplished a lot of things. That's why making it quantifiable is always great. Here in the professional experience, I didn't make any changes to this. Per se, it just looks clean, it looks concise. There's the education and there's the technology and technical skills. So now you might be saying, well, this is not like the most beautiful resume, but it's clean, it's getting to the point. You don't have to make it like, unless you're actually a designer or something like that, you don't have to make your resume, do too much. You want it to just do the job, get it noticed by the system and then the hiring manager. This section here, also crucial because this is the section that you can use to cater and customize based off of the actual job that you're applying for. So if these here are relevant to the job that you're applying for, right? You see those keywords in the job description, great. But it's also a section that you can use to customize it as well. Now, let's say if Jessica had a little bit more experience and this was 2 pages, another thing you want to do is in the header, make sure it has your name, your phone number, and your email address in the actual header. You can also put the portfolio link in there if you want to as well. You can do that. Now, what I don't want you to actually do, a lot of times people actually just take a bunch of keywords from the actual job description and they will put it in the header with white font. Please do not do that because the ATS systems are so advanced now they can detect that and it'll actually show up. So your resume will look very crazy to somebody looking at it or to the system. So you want to make sure that you're naturally listing out some of the skills from the job description on the resumes. And so this is a wonderful resume. It'll get picked up by an ATS system. So this is the idea of how you can restructure yours to be a little bit more competitive and get it to the actual recruiter's face. And so I'm going to read some of these comments here. Yes, the bullet points could be shorter. One recruiter told me that they would give an ATS process resume 6 to 10 seconds. Yes, very true. Which is why you want to have 4 bullet points. Each bullet point's no more than 1 sentence and not like a long extended sentence. Because sometimes people write sentences and they're never ending. Just get to the point in those 4 bullet points. Idea, instrument your resume. You can use tools like wiseref.com absolutely to see that if that specific link in that resume is actually getting clicked on. This is very good advice, and I highly, highly agree. So these are just some of the things that you can do here. And so what I want to talk about now, I want to talk about navigating applicant tracking systems. So some of you talked about AI. And so I'm going to address all of that in this section because it is something you really do need to be aware of when it comes to applying now, but even more so in 2024. So the first thing, remember I said tailor your resume. So we talked about that. Customize your resume for every single job application. I know that sounds time consuming, but what you don't want to consume your time is to apply for like 200 to 500 positions and you're getting yourself nowhere. Read the job description, identify specific keywords. There's tools that you can use in order to do that. You can use something, you can even use ChatGPT to do that by actually copying the job description, putting it in there and asking ChatGPT to identify specific keywords. Do whatever it is that you need to do to have to save time. What you don't want to do is just copy things verbatim. So I will say this, if you are using ChatGPT, which is, I highly recommend that you can use ChatGPT for your resume and cover letter, you still need to add your secret sauce. Remember, this is a system. And remember, if a job has like, let's say 100 applicants, 9 times out of 10, there are other applicants that's going to be using ChatGPT as well. You don't want it to all sound the same. So you still have to put a level of customization on the on the answers that you're going to be putting in there. So you can, if you're going to use ChatGPT, to give them information about yourself. I'm a product manager with this amount of years of experience. I'm certified in this. These are the skills that I bring to the table. You want to make sure that you're giving ChatGPT as much information as possible to help you. And even when you're copying it, still make sure you're reading it over to make sure it's truly talking about you. Again, I agree with this statement, co-create with ChatGPT, but don't give the co-pilot full control of the plane. I love the analogy. And yes, use technology to help you. Remember, the hiring manager is using ATS, an applicant tracking system, and they're using AI in order to help them. A lot of hiring managers are using AI to write job description, and that's why some of them sound so robotic, and they don't actually sound like it's actually written by a human being. So you want to tell your resume and your cover letter with all this information, but you want to use keywords. So if you're a product manager, of course, you want to make sure it has product manager or product management on there. But again, keywords from skills and all of that stuff. The next thing is that you want to make sure it's using standard resume formats. So again, you want to make sure that you're using either a Microsoft Word document. So, docx is the newest format, or a PDF file, to encourage compatibility with the ATS. Now, I will say, for the longest time, recruiters would say don't upload a document to the actual ATS. However, some of the ATS systems have difficulty pulling from a PDF. So you can, in fact, use a Microsoft Word doc to make sure that it's pulling the format in the correct way. But you don't want to use, some unconventional format or an excessive use of design elements. So no picture, no crazy designs. Just keep it very basic so it could just do the job for you and make it very easy. Now, the next thing is to avoid headers and footers. Now, when I say avoid headers and footers, you don't want to put all this text. And this is the reason why I said a lot of people were copying, like, for example, on a job description, it might say this is the requirements or the required skills that they're looking for. They would copy the skills and the keywords, put it in the header in white font, in white color, excuse me. And, that's how they were trying to trick the system and actually to, make the algorithm to put their application higher. But again, these ATS systems are very, very advanced. And so it will have difficulty reading some of that text. If you're going to put information in the header, just put your name, your contact details, like your phone number, email address, and so forth. You don't want to put anything crazy. The next thing is, of course, using simple fonts. So I've seen some crazy fonts people use with their resumes, thinking it's going to make it stand out, but at the same time, keep it basic. Use things like Arial, Calibri, Times New Roman. Those three fonts are extremely readable. Keep it basic. And you don't want to use anything decorative like scripts and those kind of fonts. And I agree with this tip as well. Check the links in your resume. So I've actually seen people, you can tell somebody used maybe a template and they forgot to maybe update the link. So the link actually went to somebody else's portfolio, someone else's LinkedIn, even though it showed the link, right? Let's, for example, for me, it would have shown on my resume, www.hirebreakthrough.com. But when you click the link, it went somewhere else. So you want to make sure you're checking that it's actually going to the right place and that it's actually clickable in that way. So very, very, very good tip. Of course, you want to optimize the file names. Now, this sounds crazy, to some, but you want to make sure it actually talks about where it is that you're applying, what the document is, and the title. So, for example, if I'm applying to a VP of product role, so I would have put Kimone Napier _ resume. I would have put VP of product or vice president of product, if that was the title, _ the name of the company. So if it was at the product lead, I would have put _ product lead. Save and apply it that way. Now, this is the reason as to why this is actually also a great tip. Not because recruiters love to see that. This person took the extra mile to actually rename the file. You would be surprised the things that actually bring recruiters and hiring managers joy when somebody just takes the extra step to just do something. But also it will help you because it's going to help the ATS system and the recruiter to easily identify the document and what it is. It's also going to help you because you're going to save it somewhere on your computer or on your Google Drive or wherever to actually see the different applications that you have. It also gives you a good sense of how many of the jobs that you've applied to. So you're going to have this running list somewhere listed there. And so, if you have an interview, right, because you're customizing all of your resumes for every position, that this is the actual resume that I used to apply to the position. So it's also going to help you in that way as well. You want to make sure you're also going to spell out acronyms on your resume. So sometimes we can get very technical, right? I said ATS, but if I was applying for a role that asks me that the role is saying that I need to be skilled in using an ATS system or applicant tracking system, I would spell it out applicant tracking system, because again, you want the ATS system, the applicant tracking system, to actually pick it up. And so if everything is just acronyms, it's not going to help. But you could just put, for example, if it's a product manager, instead of saying PM, you could put product management parentheses PM is how you would do that. So that's the next tip there. You want to avoid graphics and images. So I talked about that, but avoid all of that stuff. Like you don't want to use any graphics, images, any charts or tables. Leave the charts and tables for your portfolio because the ATS system may not recognize it properly, or it's not going to parse them. So it'll look crazy to the eyes of whoever will get to review it. Somebody asked about how about name, resume, title, company. Yep, that's exactly what I said. So for example, if I was applying to a VP of product role, it'll be my name, Kimone Napier. You could put a dash, you could put underscore, whatever it is, resume, the title, and the company. That is going to, again, make it stand out, and it'll make it easier for a recruiter to actually find your resume. Remember, the recruiter and hiring managers, they're shifting through hundreds, sometimes even thousands of resumes, and sometimes it makes it hard for them to find it, believe it or not, and it'll just make it a little bit easier for them and save them some time. And then the last one is include relevant keywords naturally. I can't stress this. Like I said, don't put all of that in the header, put it on the actual resume. You can actually talk about some of those keywords in your cover letter as well. So it's going to just make it a little bit more compelling and easier for you. All right. And so I want to talk about the portfolio. I got a lot of questions about that or comments about the portfolio. So how many of you are actually using a portfolio when you're actually applying for product manager roles, no matter the level? I'm actually just very curious about that. So let's talk about what you want to have in the portfolio. So you want to choose the right platform for you. It could be your website. You could use a portfolio platform software like Behance. You can use a PDF document. So many things that you can actually utilize. I've seen some people actually do video talking about their accomplishments. Now, this is what I would say. If you're going to do a portfolio, you can have a video embedded in the portfolio. That's completely fine. It'll help you to stand out. But I would say a personal website also offers the most flexibility and professionalism. Somebody said they use Notion. I actually like Notion a lot because it can operate like a website. Somebody says they have a portfolio, but I'm not sure if it's very good. Well, I'm going to talk about some things you can do to like strengthen your portfolio. You're going to select key projects. So projects that you've worked on. Maybe if you're very early level on and you don't have a lot of projects, if you've done work, as a student, include some of that information in there because you want to showcase some of the skills relevant to product management. A tip for you as well. So what I've seen a couple of people do that's landed greatly. Recent graduates have done test projects as well and have included that in their portfolios, and that can actually really help you. If you're a senior, you have so many projects that you can choose from, but again, you might want to have variations of your portfolio depending on what it is that you're applying for. So you want to make sure it's custom, and it might not be a major tweak, but it may be like maybe you're going to talk about 3 projects in your portfolio, and maybe for a different job you have to change maybe one of the projects in there for it to stand out better, things like that. But you want to have some variations there. You want to talk about your contributions. So what's your contributions to each project? Highlight your decision making, your problem solving, your leadership capabilities. Like, as I said before, brag on yourself, because as a product manager, your actions has led to the project success. You have quantifiable metrics that you can talk about. You want to include visuals. So if you have any user flows, some screenshots or anything, right? You want to make sure that you're taking out information that could get you in trouble with whatever company there. So, something that's not identifiable, you can block out certain information that you can't necessarily share publicly in a portfolio, but you want to make sure you have the gist of what it is that you've accomplished, quantify the results. So use the metrics and data to talk about that. And you can, talk about something that you've done that increase something like user engagement by a certain percentages. Hiring managers and recruiters love to see that, and the ATS system loves to see that. So talk about that, and talk about the product iteration, how you iterated on a product over time, the impact of whatever you iterated, how it aligned with the user's needs and the business objective. So you want to talk about how it benefited the employer, but you also want to talk about how it benefits the users with some of the changes that you talked about. You want to talk about innovative solutions or something creative that you've come up with. You can include personal projects as well. So for example, like I said, if you are very early on in your career, maybe a recent graduate or anything like that, you can talk about some personal projects. You can even talk about maybe a product that you saw somebody else manage at a company, and talk about even what you would do to actually better that product. So for example, if you're applying for a role and maybe it actually talks about the product that you will be managing, you could talk about some ideas you have in order to improve that product just there. Again, anything that's going to demonstrate your passion, your initiative, and help you to stand out is going to help you. Challenges and solutions. So, we recruiters really, they like real talk. So if you had challenges on a specific project, because nothing is 100% perfect, you could talk about those challenges and how you effectively found a solution for those. Highlight cross-functional collaboration because it's going to help you to stand out as a leader. Somebody mentioned earlier that, in their next role, they want to be more strategic. They don't want to basically to implement. They want to talk about some more strategy or a shift to that in their next role. And so, right, Eddie said that she wanted to level up on more product strategy. That can help you to talk. That can actually help you because you'll talk about some of that stuff, your cross-functional collaboration, how you work with, designers, engineers, marketers, stakeholders to achieve project goals. In your cover letter, talk about what it is that you're looking for in the next role, that you're looking for to be more strategic. You can talk about what you're not looking for in the next role. So you can talk about that you're interested in working more on strategy versus the actual implementation of product management. Let them know. Let them know, because you want to make sure that the next job that you're getting is actually what it is that you want for longevity. Nobody is trying to look for a job every single year, every single couple of months. Somebody actually wants to do that. And so that will help you with that. The next thing is that make sure that you're promoting your portfolio. So I'm going to talk about, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to talk about how you can leverage your online presence, but you want to promote this portfolio. So if you are reaching out to hiring managers on LinkedIn, recruiters, whoever it is that's, managing the role, make sure you're actually promoting that. Introduce yourself. You're a product manager. This is what you can contribute, and share that portfolio. I guarantee you, most people are not doing this. And so again, it's going to help you to stand out because it's just going to make it easier. Maybe you're the person that this recruiter or hiring manager have been looking for so long. And so you just save them a ton of time for having to shift through resumes because you shared your portfolio link and they're like, wow, I'm impressed. I need to have a conversation with this person. Sometimes it might actually shorten the actual hiring process just because you took the initiative and reached out that way. So again, make sure that you're promoting it. In LinkedIn, you can actually include the link in your profile and make it clickable. So they can click it and visit your portfolio. You can put it in your introduction section. So make sure that you're actually promoting it and sharing it. And actually, if you're going to networking events, if you have, a digital card, I usually have a digital card, or you have a physical card, you have a link to your portfolio or a QR code, because you're networking and you want to make sure that you're remembered by people and then they have this information. Again, this is just how you're going to actually promote it and find ways to actually shorten the process for yourself. All right, so we're going to talk about leveraging your online presence. So again, I'm just going to talk about some tips. Optimize your LinkedIn profile. Usually recruiters, what they'll do once they get your application and everything, they'll go to your LinkedIn. So make sure that it's professional. It tells a story. You want to use a professional photo. You want to have a compelling a headline. So you can say like, senior product manager with 10 years of experience working with yada, yada, yada. So you want to just make sure it's clean and it's compelling. And then in your summary, you can highlight your skills, your career aspirations. You make sure you're adding your work experiences. They check to see if your work experience on LinkedIn matches up with your resume. So you want to make sure that it's doing that. You can actually set your resume where it just lists the actual company, and not your resume. You could actually set your LinkedIn profile to make sure it actually is just showing publicly your actual title, the company you work for, and the dates. Because you're customizing some of that the accomplishments maybe in each role that you've ever have, sometimes you don't want that to be visible because you might have forgotten to change it, and it's time consuming to change it, and a recruiter might look at it and say, well, this doesn't match up. I wonder. It's like red flag in their head. So you can set your profile to just show the actual titles, the dates, and all of that stuff. So that's the first thing, is optimizing your LinkedIn profile, networking, especially if you are a senior. Most times there's a percentage here, but it's like, I believe it's like 48% of roles at a senior level is usually found through networking. Same can apply if you're very early level. So make sure if you're participating in events just like this one, you're meeting people, you're going to conferences, it's going to help you to also stay top of mind with people. People remember people that they meet, um, versus just by seeing a name. So if somebody's met you and they're just like, oh, I actually know somebody who's a project manager with this amount of experience, maybe you should have a conversation. You'll get referrals that way. So making sure that you're actually networking, participating in events, and making sure that you're actually giving person information to connect with you as well, whether it's your LinkedIn, your website, your email, whatever it is, will actually help you with this process. Your personal website and blog, of course. Now, if you're very senior, you might have a blog, you're contributing to articles and stuff like that. This is for people who really love creating content. Nothing wrong with that, but you want to make sure you have that presence and people know where they can find your thought leadership. So you can regularly publish your thoughts about whatever's happening in product management land or tips and trends, because people will, of course, follow you, stay abreast of all the different topics and things like that. But it also is just going to help you to stand out, and your personal website, again, could just highlight your portfolio or your work. Any online courses and certifications will also help. So, you can use them to enhance your skills. If you're particularly entry level, you can use courses and certification to really showcase your qualifications as a product manager and highlight these credentials in your LinkedIn profile, as well as your portfolio and your resume. So it demonstrates how you're committed to professional development and you're staying relevant in your industry. Online communities and forums, again, a lot of people use these to actually contribute. So LinkedIn, sometimes it has a feature where it actually asks your opinion for things in your industry. So I get them all the time. They'll send me a notification about an article that they're writing, and they'll ask me, what do I think about something? And so I contribute to topics and things like that. You can do the same in communities, forums, and discussion boards related to product management, because it's going to show you as a valuable contributor, and it's going to help demonstrate your authority in the product management space. So there's also that. And of course, guest speaking. If you have a lot of experience in product manager, there's no reason why you can't talk on a topic. You can host your own events. You can, contribute to podcasts, webinars, virtual events, and all of that stuff, because it could help you reach a wider audience and position yourself as an industry expert. And so that, my friends, we're at the end of this. Now, I have an ask. I would love your feedback on this presentation. As a gift for giving me your feedback, I'm going to give you an ATS friendly resume template. So for those of you who are struggling and you just need somewhere to start, maybe even if you're more senior and you're just like, okay, I got to restructure all of this, I'm going to give you an ATS friendly resume template in as a thanks for you just giving me a feedback about this presentation. So this is how you can do that. You can go here to talk.ac/Kimone Napier and give me your feedback by entering the word job search. I'll also post that in the comments, the link that you can go directly in there. But thank you again so much, because I really enjoyed doing this. And now I'm excited to hear about all your questions. So I've seen questions throughout this presentation, and I'm just so excited to now answer some of these questions. So Mariah, thank you for coming back. And I'm excited.
This was packed. This webinar was packed with valuable tips, information, know-how, everything product managers at all levels need forget their career ready for 2024. Packed. So, audience, dear audience, you have now two call to actions to follow. First action item, please show Kimone some product love. Go to the QR code she posted before. We will also include it in the chat. And also show some love. Hit the like button. Show everyone, show the algorithm that you love Kimone and you love and appreciate all the know-how, all the knowledge she just shared with you. And the second call to action is as follows. We are all about community. And everyone in the audience has at least one person in mind that is in need to hear and to watch this webinar today. So when we will close this session, everyone, you have to share this one with at least one person. You have at least one friend, one colleague that has to learn from Kimone how to get themselves, how to get their career in product management 2024 ready. This was fantastic. We already have some comments from the audience. Jonathan here with it was extremely practical. Thank you. Dot with excellent points. Thanks. I can express it enough. This was a brilliant one. So we don't have a lot of time, but we do have questions, good answers, good questions coming from the audience. Here's one from Laura. And she's asking, I've heard that recruiters can see how many LinkedIn jobs you've applied to and will discount you if the number is too high. Is there any truth to that?
I mean, there could be truth to that, but I don't see why. I mean, if you're applying to jobs, I mean, they know you're on a job search. But a tip, if that's something that you're actually worried about, what you can do is most people, like I said, use an applicant tracking system in the ATS to actually post the jobs to LinkedIn. So if you see, for example, let's say if you see product lead, they're hiring for a product manager listed on LinkedIn, all you can do is just go to the actual website of the company and apply on the company website. They won't know. They will have no idea that you applied to a ton of jobs. And so, of course, there could be truth to that because let's say if your company uses LinkedIn Recruiter and they can search you up on LinkedIn, they can see on the back end that you've been actively applying to jobs. So this is just a way for you to kind of get around that and still, apply to jobs so you can actually get the job that you really, really want and maybe leave the company that you're at right now.
This is what you come for the product league floor for all the juicy stuff that only Kimone can teach you. I love that. The second question comes from two candidates, two audience members. Both are asking about relocation. So Ramon is here saying, I'm moving to the US in a few months and I want to prepare myself. And Mandy is here saying, I'm from Nigeria and I find it very difficult to get interviews while I'm in Canada. I just relocated. I'm not sure why I'm not getting called. So what are your tips, Kimone, as for how to be 2024 ready when there is the relocation aspect involved?
Yeah, so when it's the relocation aspect, what I would do is in your header of your resume, I would put that you can put Canada. I'm just pulling this as an example. So if you're relocating to Canada or maybe the US, you can just put that where you're relocating. If you're not sure as to yet, you could just put United States of America. You could just put it there because it'll tell the recruiter that, because if they're looking at your experience and they're seeing your experiences in another country, what it might say to them is like, okay, if this person is they can't actually work in the United States. But if they can see on your resume that you're actually present in the United States, and even though you're not present yet, you're going to be, you already know you're moving here. So you can already get ahead of yourself and put it there. I think it was Mindy. I don't remember. I think it was Mindy who asked the question. Amanda. Okay. Amanda asked a question about Nigeria. And she's having difficulties getting interviews here in Canada. So it could be a couple of reasons as to why. It could be your resume, that could be the issue. It could be maybe you're not using a portfolio and things like that. They might also assume that because you're done project management in Nigeria, that you're based in Nigeria and you're not actually based in Canada. It could also be that. So you can use the same thing that I said before and make sure up in your header that you're actually putting that you're present in Canada. Another thing is that in your cover letter, because this could be a bias, they could also assume that you've done product management in Nigeria and it's not comparable to product manager here in Canada or the United States. So talk about that in your cover letter. Like you had to brag on yourself because it's a bias that people have. Sometimes people, recruiters will see a resume and they'll say to themselves like, well, this person is international thinking, like they have no context to actually do the same skill set here in the United States or Canada. So you actually want to talk about your experience here. And if you have a portfolio, I would highly recommend you include that in your resume as well, because it's just going to help you stand out further. So those are the tips that I would give specifically to you.
That's fantastic. And I'll build up on that and mention some of your last tips, the last tip that you share with us in the presentation, that it's not just about the application, it's also about networking.
Yes.
So you just moved to Canada, you're just about to move to the US, Amanda and Ramon. Build some network. This is your net worth, as they say. Go ahead and do that for yourself. Stanislav here saying thanks a lot to Moria for the organization of these meetings and to Kimone for the excellent speech and great tips and tricks. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, everyone in the audience. Remember, you have 2 action items to follow. 1, show some product love to Kimone. Hit the like button, show the algorithm over LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube that you love Kimone and the wonderful knowledge that she shared with you, and then share this session with one of your colleagues or friends. We want everyone to be prepared for 2024, and I'm sure you have someone in mind. Kimone, this was a brilliant webinar. I loved everything that you mentioned. I thank you for sharing this with us. How was this for you?
This was amazing. And I'm so glad that I could give some tips to really help everyone as they're going to be applying for more jobs and as they're trying to get ready for 2024. I know it's been a very hard year for a lot of you. You're like, I've been applying, I'm not hearing back, but I'm hoping that some of the insights that I gave you at the session last week and at this one is also insightful for you to understand the process on the back end for hiring managers, but also as a candidate and an applicant, so you can really stand out and making sure that you're actually getting calls back and that you move past the actual system to actually getting in front of somebody. So I'm hoping this was extremely helpful. And like I said before, I would love your feedback. But Mariah, thank you so much for having me here today.
The pleasure is mine. And as Kimone mentioned, this event today is part of a series, 2-part series. We started last week with giving you the other side of the equation, letting you know how the job description, the finding candidates aspect of the hiring managers and the HR people is done. So we gave you their perspective of the situation, one that can actually tell you a lot about the process, even if you're just looking for your next position, because you understand how the other people think, you understand how the recruiter and the hiring manager actually look for candidates. So if you missed that webinar, go ahead, make sure to watch this one as well. Kimone Napier, thank you so much for bringing your know-how to our audience. Sincerely, I can't wait to have you on our floor here again. Thank you so much. And everyone in the audience, go lick it up. Have a fantastic day ahead. Bye-bye, everyone.